Hey, what's up? It's Shit Talk. I'm John, and Derek is with me, and David is not, because he's just not.
You know what he's doing? He's blowing off his friends to go hang out with family.
With family.
Who does such things?
Fucking nerve of that guy?
It is quite appalling, because you are very important. I am certainly fucking important. And we had plans to talk about Category 7.
Yeah.
He blew us off.
He did. So, Dylan, I hope you're having a good time with your father.
Yeah, in that stupid Rangers hat.
God, it's unbelievable.
All right, let's talk about our man, John
Dave's
Bush.
all right. Dave's all right.
Yeah, fuck Dave. Let's talk about John Bush.
Okay, sweet. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, what did you think when you first got into Category 7 and you looked at the band lineup? And feel free to take the lead on who is in the band if you so desire.
Yeah, John Bush on vocals. John Bush, of course, from Anthrax and Armored Saint. Jason Bittner on drums from Shadows Fall and Overkill. I've had a man crush on Bittner for a while now. Sick player. Phil Demmel on guitar from Machine Head and Violence. Mike Orlando from Adrenaline Mob and Nocturnal on second guitar. I wouldn't say second guitar because these guys are certainly on par with each other. And Jack Gibson on bass. Jack, of course, coming from Exodus. What I just learned before jumping on this call with you was that Mike Orlando, one of the guitar players, also produced, engineered, mixed, and mastered this album. And he is clearly a man of great skill in that regard, as well as on the guitar, because it is a fantastic sounding record.
So what'd you think when I brought this to the table? Were you pessimistic? Were you excited? What were you thinking going into it?
I didn't really have any expectation because I knew the players and knew the bands that they came from, and I figured it wouldn't be too far from any of the vein of those bands. You know, they wouldn't stray into, it wasn't going to be a top 40 country album. But so aside from that, I didn't really have a whole lot of expectations. But the first song in Stitches, it's just like that. The album opens with this like blistering display of talent.
Yes.
By these guys. And I don't want to say it was shocking, but it was great. I was super pleasantly surprised at how much I liked it.
Metaphorically, all I thought of, and I'm not saying that the guys are narcissists, but what would a bunch of narcissists do if they were like really good players? They'd get in a room and they would record in Stitches and show off right away. I have the best abilities. I have the best gear. I've got the best sounding production qualities. And let's just hit everybody in the world over the head with a 2x4 and have some whirling guitar solos and Mr. Bittner being a banshee on the drums. Total demon.
Yeah. And he's on display through the whole record. Everybody is. And that's another thing I noticed just a couple songs in was the mix. It's a great mix. Super, super easy to listen to. But one of the things that stood out to me is the bass guitar is mixed so well on this. It stands out. You can hear it, but it lives. It's got its own space in the mix, but it's such a great part of the aggregate. And it made me think actually a lot of Steve Harris in the way his bass sits in Iron Maiden albums. And I was like, oh yeah, you actually get to hear them, and bass often gets lost on metal records and it doesn't hear. And I was like,
Injustice for All, for example.
Yeah, don't get me started. But yeah, so because that was the biggest example of a bass just getting mixed out altogether. So it was great to hear it here. Yeah, Bittner is fantastic. I don't know, the whole album is like it's like an ode to 80s metal with a 2024, 2025 spin on it. It's clean, it's modern, but it definitely you can tell where the heritage is from all these guys.
For me, I felt like it was Anthrax's Sound of White Noise. This would be the album that would come after that. That if they took the formula for that record, Anthrax's Sound of White Noise record, and changed the players but kept the sound and the tones, it felt very similar. And I found myself with a lot of times going through and listening to the record, and I heard parts that were eerily similar to Sound of White Noise. Like Apple of Discord perfectly would have fit into that record. So I really liked it. I liked Sound of White Noise. Was I disappointed when Joey, was no longer in the band and Dan Spitz was gone? Sure, absolutely. But I thought that for the time, that record was really, really solid. And this is a really solid kickoff record. I do have some things I don't like about it. We'll get into that a little bit later on. They're more nitpicky. Maybe I'm a narcissistic prick, but I am going to say my piece.
No.
Yeah, why not?
No. Look, there are a couple like you. I have a few nitpicky things, but they're very nitpicky. They're almost not worth mentioning. They're that small. Like there were a couple of times I thought, and this is like being an elitist, and I have no standing to be an elitist on any level.
Right.
Like, you know what? Kick drum sounds a little clicky. So like a little too much 250, 300 hertz pushed up in the mix, just on the kick drum. And it's just like, the fuck are you talking about, man? So that's my dislikes on this record are that level, like not even worth discussing.
Well, mine is vanity. It's very vain, but I can't stand the album cover. It looks like a Tekken video game cover. Like you could replace Category 7 and put Tekken on there, and then that's it. It's like this is
okay, yeah. I just pulled it up. Yeah, it's like the big storm and the tornado and all that. Yeah,
and the band name, it's like Category 7. It's a big, big hurricane. We live in Florida. We know all about those fucking things. I don't want to be reminded about Category 5, 6, or nor 7 if that ever comes to be living here. But it's the band name is not great in my opinion.
Do you know where these guys are all based out of? What part of the country roughly? I have no idea where any of them are.
Listen, we're shitty journalists. We probably should know that. You brought it up, and now you're going to cut it out. But
I'm leaving it.
But the bottom line is that I don't like the band name, and I hate the marketing on it. The record the album art is not cool. Kerry King wouldn't be caught dead putting a tornado on the front of one of his records. He puts demons on, and metalheads want to see demons and skulls and fire and brimstone and some kind of war or some kind of mythology. But just a Tekken cover with a tornado just didn't work for me. But that's it. Other than that, I was able to get over the shitty artwork, and say this is a solid metal record with some absolute monster players.
I couldn't agree more. And I hadn't really looked at the cover art until now, this conversation. I mean, I glanced at it, but it is a little video gamey. And as far as the band name, I don't know, I'm on the fence because I think band names are like naming a kid, maybe, I guess. I probably mean something to them ostensibly. I don't know. And I appreciate why you don't want to be reminded of a hurricane, given what we've all gone through with certain storms. But I don't know. I guess am I going to chant the name? That's the question. If I'm at a show and I'm chanting, then the band name before they come on stage, how am I going to feel chanting it? I don't know how I'll feel chanting Category.
Dangerous. Metal and rock needs to have some dangerous, blasphemous.
Listen, if you don't think a Category hurricane is dangerous, Derek, we need to have a
it's just an unnecessary thing to have to think about when you're listening to your entertainment. And again, it's selfish of me, and I called them narcissists, so I'm a narcissist for saying that and being selfish. Well, let's talk about Land I Used to Love. The other nitpick that I had was most of this record, John Bush's lyrics are not going to take you to another dimension and make you think too much. It's pretty, right in your face. However, I did like the finger tapping guitars and classic Bush singing in the chorus on that on the track. But he says, so the sphere it keeps turning unless it's flat as a pancake burning. Fork in the road with a tasteless joke. Even Carlin wouldn't survive these times. I love that he mentioned George Carlin because George Carlin would have been canceled by a lot of people that are out there today for being truthful of his viewpoint of the world. And he was pretty honest. He was very political, but he was a really funny fucking man. And I thought that this track was actually lyrically really relevant. I thought it was executed with absolute perfection. Again, tons of finger tapping guitars, and Bush sounded like classic Bush. I mean, he is still singing with the same vibrato and chutzpah that he had, in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And I was really impressed with his performance on this.
Is it wrong? Would it be insulting to him or to anybody else or to any listener to say that John's got a lot of Rob Halford? No, let me rephrase that. I don't think John has a lot of Rob Halford style. I think they both share a common style. I think maybe that's a better way of putting it.
I think it's Rob Halford when you hear Rob Halford, and I think it's John Bush. And our friend Keith Bennett, when we talked to him, I mean, I nailed it. I said, "There's a track."
Yeah. Yep.
And he goes, "Yeah, it was Sound of White Noise. John Bush is what I was going for." And he really was mimicking him. And imitation is it's common for artists to do, but it's also done with great love. And I thought that Keith really said that well. But Bush is he's it's him when you hear him. There's very few singers that are out there in the world that as soon as you hear them, whatever band that they're in, it's John Bush.
It's them. Yeah. And maybe I should clarify that. I don't mean to say, and I don't think any of us necessarily, when we say like, oh, that sounds like, that song sounds like a Rage Against the Machine song, or, that intro sounds like a Pantera, riff. That's not to say like, oh no, you're trying to do something that Dimebag would do or whatever. And nor is it to take any credit, but I think it's impossible to write something without the stuff you like and you're influenced by making its way in. I mean, sure. I think that's a nod. So when I kind of benchmark John Bush and Rob Halford against one another, that's not to say, oh, you're trying to sound like him, or he's trying to sound like you, or anybody's trying to copy anybody. But my fear is that somebody would go like, oh, you're just saying that's a cop out. You're just trying to make it sound like John Bush wants to sound like Rob Halford. No, that's not. I think they share styles, maybe in the same way two guitar players from different bands might share a style. It's not to say one's better or worse than the other.
Well, I think Rob can hit higher notes than Mr. Bush can, for sure. Yeah. But they're both fantastic in their own account, for sure.
Yeah, John Bush is a strong singer, and like you said, they've been around. John hasn't been around too much shorter than Rob.
Well, he was up for Metallica. If you, I don't know if you knew that, but when Hetfield was not sure he wanted to sing in Metallica, he wasn't feeling confident. They were considering John Bush because he was in Los Angeles to sing in the band. What
do you think that would have looked like 40 years later?
I'm sure they would have been successful. Honestly, personally, I've talked about this. I think that James Hetfield went back to school recently. Yeah. And he's singing better now than he did in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s. Sonically, he's hitting notes that he didn't hit years ago. He's just a well-rounded singer and performer now. But there was no way that Metallica wasn't going to be successful, no matter who was singing, I don't think.
Yeah, with James's riffs and yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
What else stood out to you on the record?
Exhausted, standout track, turned me on to the band. The guitar work on that is second to none. Great song, best track on the record. I felt like that could have slid in right before Only on Sound of White Noise. Again, would have fit into that record perfectly. Again, I just sometimes wonder how much of this was maybe on the cutting floor of Sound of White Noise back in the day, because for me, it's so similar. I'd be interested if any of our listeners, the 5 or 10 that there are, or if somebody in the band in Category 7 would tell me if it was a conscious effort to kind of take some of the themes of that record and expand upon them.
Well, let's put it out there. Yeah, if you're one of the 13 folks, we'd like to have you on.
Yeah, and Mousetrap felt like Potter's Field. It drums, frantic pacing. It felt like it could have fit right next to that song on Sound of White Noise as well. And I went back and listened to that. I was in the car today and I played both records back to back. And I just, obviously this record is produced better because it's modern, but my God, it's just they fit side by side together perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. Hats off again to Mike Orlando for an exceptional job on all the tech side. The mixing and the mastering is so good. Mousetrap, I love there's some synth bass that's layered in there. I don't know if it's I don't know what the hell he's doing, keys or actual synth bass, but it's so good. It's so nice.
Yeah, I gotta call out Phil Demmel as well. He
Yeah.
he went and he did the Blackening album with Machine Head, and just one of the classic Machine Head records. And I believe that he had a large part to play with making that record such a instant classic. But he interestingly had to sit for a long time alone with this record as well as the Kerry King record, waiting for them to come out, because he plays guitar on both of them.
Yeah.
And I have to give him props for largely being quiet about these two projects that he was working on, because he wasn't saying a peep to anybody. And it had to have been killing him to have these two amazing records that have come out this year and having to sit for a very long time waiting. So his patience, he's very, very Zen-like, very Buddha. He must sit with no shirt on and rub his belly and meditate.
You know what? If the unlikely chance somebody from the band hears this, give us more playthrough videos. I want to see you guys doing this stuff. Nice tight camera shot up close so we can see what you're doing. Phil and Mike put out a playthrough for In Stitches, and it's great. I love all playthrough videos, but I want to see more. And Bittner's got quite a few playthrough videos out there, and I'd love to see his playthroughs for this stuff. It's so fucking good. I like the intro on Mousetrap. It's just Bittner on display again.
Totally.
Get 20 seconds of Bittner just having at it.
He is he's a beast, and we get to talk about him a lot. We talked about him on the last Overkill, and we talked about him last week with Brian and Shadows Fall, and there's a reason why he's in demand. I'm going to give it an 8. One thing that I was looking for was something along the line, go back to Sound of White Noise, is Black Lodge. Black Lodge is a great track on there, and it's a little bit slower pace. It's not a ballad. It is a slower song, slower paced, has a kind of a darker tone to it. There wasn't one of those on this record. I would have liked to have seen them slow it down just for a little bit, give people a different spin, a different flavor, a slower flavor. Again, that's a minor complaint.
Now, it's interesting because I wondered, as 3-4 songs in, I wondered, where is the slower one going to be? Because it, like I said, it has this great 80s metal core to it, but done in a very modern fashion. Where's not the ballad necessarily, but where are they going to slow down? And I was glad they didn't. I was glad they kept the energy up all the way through it. I wasn't looking for respite on this record like I have on some others,
Well, it's a solid record minus the artwork, and the band name, maybe they should change it to like Category Massacre or something like that. Something makes you go like this.
I can easily give it a solid 8. If I'm going to put a number on it, because the performances are great. And yes, I know you can overdub from now until eternity to get the perfect takes. I know that, but it's well established that all of the guys in this band are super talented and can do this. They may not take it from beginning to end, but I can assure you that Mike Orlando did not sit looking at a screen with Pro Tools and edit each guitar solo down note by note. No need to do so. So the performances are great. The production of the album is great. I enjoyed the songcraft. It's not as deep or intricate as, a lot of the stuff I'm into, but it made for a good listen. So yeah, it's an easy 8 all day long, and it'd be fun to watch these guys play live. Any idea? Have you read anything about what they're going to do moving forward? Is this the start of a project or a one-off? Do you know?
I have no idea. No,
okay.
Maybe we'll have to get them on for an interview and we'll find out.
Yeah. I want to fanboy out over Bittner a little bit. And, give me all the secrets on how he's doing all that shit back there, because he is a monster.
What about changing their name to Eviscerated Blood?
Eviscerated Blood. I like that too.
I don't know.
You know what? I'm sure they'll be fine with it. You know what? You should hit them up and ask them. Any chance we can make some last minute changes to the album before you put it out?
Yeah. Well, it's out. We'll deal with it. Maybe it'll grow on me. Category 7. Hopefully there's never a category 8 in our lifetime, because I have a feeling there'll be a lot of carnage.
Yeah. Well, we probably, if a category 8 were to come through our part of the world, there probably won't be a whole lot left based on the destruction from the last few relatively minor storms that came through. So
yeah,
what are you gonna do?
Good times. Well, category 7, John, Phil, Mike, Jack, and Jason. Excellent job. We thoroughly enjoyed it, and can't wait to hear more.
Yep, I concur on all fronts. It's a great pick. I'm glad you brought it.
All right.
I probably would not have gotten into this record had you not said you were going to talk about this, and I'm glad you did. So, all right, good shit.